Okay, please be seated. Thank you. I'm Employment Judge Donald McKinnon, and on my right I have Ms Doyle, and on my left I have Ms Hodgson. Now, I understand that we are here in the case of Mr Bulldog versus Cumbernauld Futures.
That's right, sir.
And Ms Kemet, you act for the claimant, I believe?
That's right, sir.
And Mr O'Hare, you act for the respondent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there any preliminary points?
Just one preliminary point, sir. I understand from my friend that the claimant has obtained alternative employment starting a week on Monday at the same salary.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is. Losses in this case are therefore agreed between the parties. However, my client would still like to have his job back at Cumbernauld Futures, and accordingly that needs to be considered by the tribunal.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other preliminary points?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, as this is a case of dismissal, and I take it dismissal is admitted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in which case then it is for the respondent to lead. Mr O'Hare, who's your first witness?
The respondent would like to call Mr Butler, sir.
Okay, please take a seat. So if you can just remain standing. Will you be taking the oath or affirming?
I'll take the oath.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Please take a seat.
Thank you.
Okay, if you're ready, Mr O'Hare.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr Butler.
Good afternoon.
If you could please state your full name and address for the tribunal.
Certainly, my name is Sean Andrew Butler. I live at 22 High Street, Airdrie in North Lanarkshire.
Can you please just turn to page number 19 of the bundle, please? This is a newspaper cutting. Is the claimant pictured in this cutting?
Yes, you can see him right in the middle of the picture, actually. He's the one that's holding the flag in the middle of the whole thing.
What was the actual reason for the disciplinary hearing?
Well, there were several reasons, really. Firstly, as we've seen, Chris was pictured by the local paper excuse me, taking part in the Scottish Defence League rally in Cumbernauld. His face was on the front page, as I've already identified. He'd already posted some inappropriate stuff on his Facebook page, and it seemed to me that he clearly held views that weren't really compatible with the general values of Cumbernauld Futures. And all of this had come to light initially when a complaint had been lodged by one of Chris's colleagues, Imran Patel, who works alongside Chris within the company's IT department.
Did the claimant at any point deny being a member of the Scottish Defence League?
No, not at all. I mean, he was as bold as brass about the whole thing. Mind you, given the picture in the paper, I mean, he can hardly deny that he's involved with it.
And what was his explanation for his membership of the SDL?
Well, I think from memory he had two explanations for it. Firstly, he was adamant that the Scottish Defence League was not a racist organisation and that they were merely a street movement just trying to stand up for the rights of the British people. Secondly, he argued that what he did in his own time was his own affair and that Cumbernauld Futures had no right to interfere with his freedom of expression.
And what's your own view of the Scottish Defence League?
Well, I think it's much the same as any right-thinking person in the country. It's a band of people who are committed to reducing the Islamic influence in Scotland and to removing all immigrants from our country for the benefit of what I believe they call the indigenous people of Britain, or whatever that means. I mean, basically, they're widely accepted to hold racist views, and they hold rallies like the one that Chris was pictured at, and generally alongside that there's fighting and violence with the police and just general intimidation of ethnic minority communities. Chris was right at the centre of the activities, and he was even approached by the paper for quotes at the rally.
Ms Kemet, cross-examination.
Yes, sir, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr Butler.
Good afternoon.
I think earlier in your evidence you said that your view of the Scottish Defence League is that they're racist. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But they're a legitimate movement in this country. They're not a banned organisation?
I don't know whether they're banned or not, to be honest, but I do know that they hold racist views.
Well, I put it to you, Mr Butler, that you have no idea what the SDL are or might be, because you didn't do any research into them at all, did you?
Well, I didn't do any research, no, but that's because I didn't have to. I mean, everyone knows what the SDL stand for, and Chris was quite clear to me at the disciplinary hearing as to what his views are and what he believed.
Yes, sir. I'd like to call the claimant, Chris Bulldog, to the stand.
Okay, Mr. Bulldog, stand. Would you like to affirm or take the oath?
I'll take the oath, please.
Okay, raise your right hand. Say after me, I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Please take a seat. There's a microphone in front of you. You may not need it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Bulldog. Can you clearly and slowly state your name, your age, and your address for the record?
Certainly, my name is Christopher Bulldog. I am 35 years old and I live at 51 Stony Drive in Cumbernauld.
You were invited to an investigation hearing, a meeting on the 22nd of November. Can you tell the tribunal what that was for?
Yeah, I mean, it turns out that my picture had appeared in one of the local newspapers because I was one of a fairly significant number of people who had attended a political rally in Cumbernauld.
And why would that be a problem?
Well, it shouldn't be, but I guess the political organisation in question is the Scottish Defence League, and we have some, strong views on immigration. Just generally how it's ruining the country, and supporting the indigenous, trying to support the indigenous people of the United Kingdom.
And what would you say to people who accuse the SDL of being racist?
Look, that's completely wrong. We are not racist, and I am not a racist. I've never racially abused anyone in my life. Not inside work, not outside work. We are, the SDL, we're a legitimate political organisation.
Some people might say that the SDL holds extreme views.
Well, some people might say that, but they're wrong. Look, we believe that there is a problem with immigration in this country. Far too many people are allowed to come from other countries to take our jobs, and they sit on benefits, and there has to be a party, a political party that stands up for the indigenous people of the UK.
And is that a view you have ever expressed in the workplace?
Not at all. Look, when I go to work, I try to be efficient. I try to be polite. And I believe I treat everyone in the office with respect, including Imran Patel.
It's quite widely accepted that the SDL is a racist, extreme right-wing organisation, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't say so. That's just you buying into the media frenzy.
And you've mentioned quite a few times previously that you're not a racist. Do you stand by that?
Of course.
And does the SDL support the forced repatriation of so-called non-Indigenous foreigners?
Yeah.
Do you think that forcing non-British born people out of the country as a result of their race or nationality is a racist notion?
Well, clearly some people think that, but I don't.
If I can refer you please to page number 19 of the bundle. This is the newspaper clipping the tribunal's been referred to on a number of occasions before. You're quoted here as saying that you support a halt and reverse approach to immigration. What exactly is it you mean by that?
Well, I mean that we want the government to close the doors to foreigners and reconsider their policy on further immigration.
Isn't it actually the case that this refers to SDL's support of forced repatriation?
No, you're trying to twist my words.
Do you think Mr. Patel was reasonable in thinking that you support the repatriation of people like him based on his race from reading this article?
No, I don't think that's reasonable at all.
So, to summarise, you admit that the SDL supports repatriation. You're photographed holding an SDL flag. You're described as an organiser of the rally, and you speak on behalf of the SDL. You're quoted in the articles as saying that you support a halt and reverse approach to immigration, and we're supposed to believe that you don't support racist ideas like repatriation.
Well, you can believe whatever you like, but I'm not a racist.
The question before this tribunal today is quite simple, and it's whether or not the claimant was fairly dismissed by the respondent. The respondent's primary reason for dismissal is that of the conduct of the claimant. If the tribunal is not with me on this point, then the respondent submits in the alternative that the alternative reason for dismissal is that of some other substantial reason, and that being third-party pressure to dismiss from the council. Both are potentially fair reasons as set out in the Employment Rights Act 1996. It submitted that the purpose of the evidence led before the tribunal was twofold. Firstly, that the respondent formed a genuine belief that Mr. Bulldog expounded racist views which violated Mr. Patel's dignity and had the potential to damage the respondent's reputation, thereby entitling the respondent to dismiss him for gross misconduct. And secondly, that because of the council's threat to remove funding, the respondent was left with no option but to dismiss him for fear of financial ruin.
Thank you, sir. I would agree with my friend that the question before this tribunal is whether or not Mr. Bulldog was fairly dismissed by the respondent from Law Futures. The respondent has advanced two potentially fair reasons for dismissal. The first is conduct, and the second is some other substantial reason. My submissions in this case will be threefold. First, that no such fair reason for dismissal existed in this case. And second, that if a fair reason did exist, the respondent did not behave reasonably in dismissing the claimant. And third, that the decision to dismiss fell out with the band of reasonable responses open to an employer in these circumstances.